board members of UU Congregation of Marin, again, and to all of the staff members who are here, and to Reverend Corey in his absence, and to all of you who are a part of this community and congregation. I bring you greetings from my family again. My wife, Tammy, is here this morning. She is not someone who likes to stand when I'm doing something in public. But if you feel like it, sweetie, would you stand? Madison told us yesterday after her volleyball tournament thingy that her mom asked her, and these were her words, would you like to go and hear Daddy speak tomorrow? And she said from the back seat, no
offense.
No offense, Daddy. But no. And so she's not here, but hopefully one of these days you'll get a chance to meet her as well. Usually, when folks hear you speak in public and they have choices and they come back to hear you again, either they were so intrigued that they really, really wanted to hear more, or they're giving you a chance to do this time what you failed to do last time. And I can't really be sure which of those might be the rationale for my being back today, but I want to thank publicly Heather. Where's Heather? Heather, I want to thank Heather publicly for including me on the list again of potential guest speakers, and for accepting my acceptance of the possibility of coming and being with you and coming back again. This week of preparation has been a little different for me. I had kind of leaned into something, and then yesterday happened, and I started trying to rework the something that I was leaning into. And you tell me when we finish here whether or not this has been worthwhile for you. I just want to say, again, I was saying that to Heather, and she made it clear to me that she's part of the process. Last week, I needed to talk to somebody. And so by being invited to come and talk to you, I was able to get a little therapy for what was going on with me. And I think the same thing is probably true again today, given what happened in Minnesota yesterday. Toni Morrison's words, I know the world is bruised and bleeding. And though it's important not to ignore the pain, it is also critical to refuse to succumb to its malevolence. Like failure, chaos contains information that can lead to knowledge, even wisdom, like art. My version of We Are Here for Good, Part 2. Those of you who were here last week learned that I'm a movie buff. I love movies, and so I used a number of them to try and demonstrate different points last week. Do we have any horror movie or scary movie people in the house? Just by show of hands. We've got 2, 3, 4. I've watched my share of them as an adult, and I still get noticeably uncomfortable when the plot begins to unfold. In fact, I hated scary movies as a child. I recall watching Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. For reasons unknown to the people in the movie, black birds or crows, I'm not sure which, were sitting passively, harmlessly on telephone lines and on branches of swaying trees, and they would suddenly swoop down and attack humans. And as they were just walking down the street and performing mundane tasks. Now, having watched this for the first time with my older sister, I was literally afraid to walk to school the next morning. I knew there would be these black birds sitting on the telephone wires, and so my grandfather came and drove me to school so that I could feel safe. But there was a more personal motivation behind my fear of scary movies as a child. During my few years on the planet as a kid, I had decided that the unexpected was not to be trusted. Moreover, I decided that the unknown could be terrifying. Scary movies in my era had a kind of formula that seized my imagination and heightened my sense of fear. I remember the formula, even as I stand here. Someone would go into a house or a building at night, and it would be dark. That's what night means. And they would try to turn on the lights, and the light switches would not work, and so the house was extremely dark. And the character on the screen would hear a sudden noise coming from somewhere deeper in the house. And that character would always say something like this: "Is there anyone there?" The silence after that was only interrupted by my beating heart as I listened carefully to see if that would be an answer. There would be this long, dark hallway in front of them. Some of you remember this. The floors would speak a kind of unfamiliar language as it sighed and moaned with each step as they moved toward the sound that was coming from somewhere or someone that I couldn't see. A clock was usually ticking in the background. Tick, tock, tick, tock. And that suggested that this particular actor or actress was not long for this world. Their life would be hauntingly limited. I would stare at the screen and listen as the soundtrack got louder and as they approached what looked like a door at the end of the hallway, and just before this vulnerable character reached out and opened the door, a phone would ring. And sometimes it would be a female character, and she would go over and she would always answer the phone, but she would never answer the phone and speak. She just lifted the receiver and put it to her ear. And usually I would hear a male voice, in some instances that sounded like one Vincent Price. And that person would say something like, "I hope you did not travel here alone. No one else deserves to die today, only you." And that person would hang up the phone quickly. The caller would hang up the phone, leaving that character on the screen, aware of the danger, but unable to determine precisely the source. The only consolation that the would-be victim had was that the caller, while he knew where she was, could not harm her from a distance. She felt comfort in that, and that comfort was not long-lived, because shortly thereafter, she began to hear footsteps coming toward her from the other side of the door. The truth began to break through to her, began to shatter her illusions, and her anxiety would build now as she realized that the call was coming from inside the house. The danger, the harm, indeed the brutality that she was to face was coming from inside the house. I've come back over here today with my wife to suggest that this may well be the situation we find ourselves facing now in 2026. In a very real sense, those of us who are paying attention to the cruel and continued bruising of our deferred dreams and the innocent blood that drips from the place where our hopes have been housed, are awakening to the realization that the call, the threat that we are under, is coming from inside the house. The world, Tony says, is bruised and bleeding. And it is bleeding on us because Some would convince us or try to convince us that it is our high expectations need to have a kind of expiration date on them. In the words of ex-Attorney General Eric Holder, some would like to resegregate these yet-to-be United States of America. How dare you teach your beige or brown or black child that they deserve a seat at the table with us? How dare you teach them that white folks making decisions in rooms behind closed doors where power is wielded but not shared are no smarter than they are? The world bruised and bleeding on us. Where were you when you heard the news of the young boy named Ralph in Missouri, who, at his mother's request, went to pick up his younger twins in a neighborhood in Kansas City, Missouri? He was supposed to pick them up at 115 Northeast Terrace. He mistakenly drove to a house at 115 Northeast Street. When he got there, he rang the doorbell and he was shot in the head by the homeowner. Depending on the version of that story that you heard or saw, that innocent boy standing outside a door that he could not open was killed and shot through the front door. He may have been shot through the screen door, it may have been the front door or screen door. What we know for sure is that Ralph was standing outside of a door that he could not open, and he was shot in the head. Can you see him? Young, gifted, black, looking for his brothers, looking for his family, waiting for someone who loves him, sees him, hears him to come through that door. Watch him as he slowly opens the door, getting out of his car, 16, probably reaching for his cell phone, then walks slowly up the steps to that house. He is standing outside of a door that he feels certain separates him from his brothers. Maybe he was looking at social media. Maybe he was practicing for a musical event that his mom says later he was going to participate in. But then suddenly, as quickly as a mockingbird looks up, sensing danger, he was hit by bullets from the other side of that door. Some sources say that the shot to his head actually came later, after he was already down. You remember the size of the hole that hatred left in the head of President Kennedy? Do you remember the dreamer that we just celebrated a few days ago being gunned down at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis? You remember what those good old boys did to Cheney, Goodman, and Swerner down south? You remember the water hoses? You remember the pictures of the dogs attacking? You don't have to trust me on this. We don't have to go back as far as the civil rights movement. I brought some witnesses with me today. You met Miss Good just last week. She can testify. There's George Floyd standing back in the corner. He can testify. Who is that standing behind you, Milton? Trayvon Martin, standing there. He can testify. Michael Brown was gunned down like a dog and left in the street for hours. He can testify. Who's that walking down the aisle? All those kids and teachers who were shot and killed in Uvalde, Texas. Who else can we invite? Oh, there they are. All of the people who were in Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina. They can all stand here and testify. Look on the Zoom feed and see if you don't see all the children who were killed at Sandy Hook. Look at our guests standing over here who were all killed in that grocery store in Buffalo, New York. They can all testify. My people have been singing for way too long. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, we sang, I do believe we shall overcome someday. No one asked my opinion, but if I could, if I had my way, I would change the word do to the word still in that song. Deep in my heart, I still believe, because the word still carries a kind of force that we're trying to convey. We were taken from a land that was home for us and brought here and made to serve as indentured servants and slaves, and we still believe. Our mothers, daughters, fathers killed, raped, tortured on this land, and we still believe. What's my question? My question, with all the bruising, with all of the debris, with all of the blood-splattered collateral damage along our path, with all of the threats upon us and more to come, what can we do? What shall we do to withstand and find some form of resilience? So I brought another one of my sheroes, Toni Morrison, and she offers us 3 simple suggestions. I'll give them to you and I'll take my seat. She suggests that we must, 1, believe in our old pain. 2, we must anticipate our new trauma. And 3, we must unlock our current chaos. First, we look at the pain. Morrison simply says it this way: I know that the world is bruised and bleeding. It's important not to ignore the pain. Those of us who are of the liberal persuasion are suffering major losses, staggering rate. And we consume news the way we do, so that means we not only suffer the losses and the pain, but the losses and pain are magnified and multiplied because of the repetition. It feels like we're not given a chance to absorb in full measure one loss before another one lands, and then another one lands, and then another one lands. I'm certainly no expert, but I maintain that even our nervous system, as Heidi said, is not built to withstand this constant repetition, these violent images. Did you see how many times they shot that man on the ground after he was already down? This guy emptied a clip into his body. Reminded me of the Malcolm X movie, when Malcolm was killed in that ballroom, and they just kept shooting him like they thought he might not die. We have to believe in our old pain. Some years ago, my nephew Brandon was small. His father, my brother Walter, advised me that he was going down to Walmart to get a bike for Brandon. He asked me if I'd go with him, so I agreed to do it. On the way to the store, we talked about all these different bicycles he could get because Brandon was young and he was fragile. I thought I would just kind of insert myself into my brother's decision-making style. So we got to Walmart and we greeted some people we knew, and when we walked into the store, I was walking behind Walter as he was walking and looking for the bike aisle. He turned left at an aisle that I didn't really recognize, but once he made that left turn, there they were. All these rows of fully assembled bikes just lined up one after the other. And he stopped to start looking at them, and I decided I would say something to him. So I said, Walter, I hope you're planning to get Brandon a bike that has training wheels on it, because if you don't, then he's gonna fall often and he's gonna hurt himself. And something was said by my brother that I still to this day remember, that washed over me like nothing else he's ever said. He didn't look up, he didn't stop examining the bikes, he just said, John, you don't have to worry about that. I've already taught my son how to fall. And he continued looking at the bikes. And as a lover of language, What he said just washed over me. I've already taught my son how to fall. I wanted to say, what do you mean? But I was afraid. Walter is not a philosophy major. He was not trying to dip me into the depths of his mind so I could understand that, John, I've already taught my son how to fall. No, he just said, John, I've already taught my son how to fall, and moved on from it, not hearing the depth that I heard. I've already taught my son how to fall. Here I am trying to help my brother, thinking he's overlooking or at least underestimating the pain that his son might deal with because of Walter's lack of awareness, only to find that my brother has clear memories of his own experience of having ridden a bike. And he's using his own experience of pain to inform how he is teaching his son to do the same. I've already taught my son how to fall. Morrison is pleading with us to recognize that one of the ways we develop resilience in the face of these what appear to be overwhelming odds is to believe in our own past pain. Learn from those pains. Do you remember when Obama first ran for president, Heather? You remember when he would go out on the stump and he would be talking about how difficult it was for us to get by and what he would do as president. He would talk about something so difficult, it sounded like overcoming it was right next door to impossible, and then he would turn around and spit out that phrase. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We have a history of overcoming. Secondly, Morrison says that if we're looking for resilience as we face a bruised world that is bleeding on us, we would do well to anticipate future trauma. She says, don't ignore the past. Don't ignore the pain. It's critical that we also refuse to succumb to its malevolence. I recall how devastating it was to read about the story that I mentioned earlier of kids dying and teachers at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. It appeared that from the reports anyway, that the local law enforcement had done less than a stellar job. In fact, one officer was just finished a trial, and I hasten to add that he was acquitted. But it was a horrific scene as these teachers and students were gunned down by young men, who should never have had access to that weapon. 19, I think it was, precious children, and 2 teachers, May 24th, 2022. However, there were several survivors. One notable survivor that I recall was an 11-year-old girl. Her name's Maya Cerrillo. She suffered some injuries. She had some bullet fragments in her back, and she had to have shrapnel removed from her fragile little body. But it was how Maya survived that I call your attention to this morning. In a video testimony to the U.S. House Committee on Oversight, Maya told them how she survived. She saw this cold-blooded killer walk into her classroom. The killer walked over to her teacher, said goodbye to her, and then gunned her down. He then turned the gun toward the students in the classroom and began randomly killing them. Maya said she got down on the floor. She was surrounded by dead or dying classmates. And then the shooter went next door into the adjoining class, and Maya said she heard screaming and shots being fired from there. At this point, Maya said she looked down and she saw the blood of one of her classmates spreading into a larger puddle as they died. Maya put her hands into the blood of her classmate, and she spread that blood all over her body so that when the killer came back in her mind, he would think she was already dead. and she pretended to be. Little Maya had just witnessed a murderous rampage, and she had the presence of mind to anticipate upcoming trauma. She expected that the person who had done this horrible deed had plans to do even more damage. Toni Morrison says, one way to dig deep for resilience in the face of what we are facing, we should not be naive about what we see happening before our eyes. If we are not careful, we will place a period where this political environment is placing a comma. We must follow Maya's model, I say, not sit around and wait for someone to come and save us from what we fear. We have tools to save ourselves. We can save ourselves by putting our hands into the blood of those who have preceded us. Their blood is on our side. The blood of millions of Jews tortured, raped, and killed, their blood is on our side. The blood of those lynched down south and elsewhere, hanging from unhappy trees, their blood is on our side. Lastly, not only does resilience in the face of a bruised world that is bleeding on us require that we believe our own pain, not only does it require that we anticipate our future trauma, it also requires, Toni says, that we unlock our current chaos. Morrison puts it this way: like failure, chaos contains information on the inside that can lead us to knowledge, even wisdom. There is something in it, she says, for us. There is a magnetic kind of quality to chaos that draws us in, and it is reluctant to release our attention. Often we are willing participants in our own demise, as we cannot turn away from the spectacle. How many times did you watch that video? Chaos is a cancer that quietly eats away at our defenses without us being aware that those defenses have lessened. The superpower of chaos is in its ability to isolate its victims, so that while we are experiencing chaos, the mind-numbing impact of chaos, one blow after another, we don't realize how vulnerable we have become. Chaos does not always issue into the experience of death, but it almost always flows into an experience of loss. Loss of a belief system that has sustained our confidence throughout an entire lifetime. Loss of a feeling of security in the presence of those we thought were trained to protect and serve us. Loss of a feeling of safety in our own homes. The grief that follows these losses can be debilitating. If what in fact I believe holds the world together in the end is not true, or if it's capable of being so easily destroyed, how can I trust the world in which I live and the lifetime that I've been given? Morrison offers us some insight. She says chaos is not merely what it appears to be on the outside. Chaos contains an interior reality that, once exposed, has potential to provide knowledge, wisdom. How do we unlock chaos? We deconstruct it. The way we deconstruct anything else that is made by human beings. We take it apart and we reduce it to its pieces, the individual instances and challenges that, when combined, feel too hard for us to handle. My daughter, who is not here, is 12 years old, and she's doing a lot of new things now. She was grounded for the last 30 days, or the whole month of December 2025. Why, you ask? I'm glad you asked. She was grounded because she did something she knew she should not have done. We told her to never leave the school campus, to never do anything that involves leaving the school campus without contacting us first. But she decided on a day when they were having a school dance, and school ends at 3:30, the dance starts at 4, she decided, she and her little friends, decided that they would walk somewhere between a quarter mile and a half mile to the corner store. And once I learned of this turn of events, she came home and we had a conversation about what were you thinking when you decided to undo what we have helped you do all of these years, and that is earn our, it's not true, get some respect from your parents, and let you do more stuff that you want to do because you demonstrated you can handle that leash. And she said to me, Daddy, I don't know what I was thinking. It felt chaotic, her word, to me, on the inside.